Good evening, everyone. We are back with another Disney review, returning to our regularly scheduled programming now every Monday, and we've got a fun one to talk about. So this was going to be last week's one, obviously, but we couldn't get our schedules working, and we've been dying to talk about this film. I think this is probably one of our favourite, if not one of our favourites, certainly one that is going to be a good discussion, I think. I've watched this once, and I watched this last week, so hopefully I can hold my own in this review. I'm going to be relying on you for this one though, because you've watched this how many times?
About four.
I'm going to move the microphone there, so hopefully we can pick it up. We've got Carl, we've got Brian. Okay, so let's go through some of these comments first. By the way, guys, I'm having to sort of like move the microphone in between us, so we're sharing a microphone. So if the audio isn't great or we need to move it around, just let us know. But hopefully you can hear us all right. The little audio thing's kind of spiking. It's in the green, so I'm assuming it's working, but just let us know. Okay. Brian in the comments says, I love the Black Cauldron. It's a good movie and would be a really cool world for Kingdom Hearts.
That's what I voted for.
We have said this a lot of times.
I did that on a closed beta for the new ones, and it was like, what world would you want to see? And I just was like Black Cauldron. Like, there was no question about it. This is
yeah,
one
absolutely. Yeah, I keep saying that because I mean we've talked about this loads, like in our day-to-day on Facebook and stuff. What worlds we want to see in Kingdom Hearts? We should do that as a separate video. I think we should do like a top 10 and do like 5 each or something and combine the list.
In the top 10 as well.
Yeah,
I think it's got if it's got the party of characters. You've got Princess name that I don't like, Taran, and you've got like basically you've got everyone, and you've got that party of people, which would work so well, like that Final Fantasy Dungeons and Dragons kind of thing.
The villain, like, could you imagine that boss fight? It'd be, I think it'd be very similar to the Ursula boss battle. Not that bit that gives you nightmares, but the bit where you have to like hit the cauldron, like her spells are coming out of the cauldron. I can imagine 80s. Something to do with that. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I think, I think this is definitely in my top.
And we've got Carl as well. How you doing, man? Hopefully you're doing well. We're here to talk about Black Cauldron. So, kind of a different setup. We're actually harkening back to... Was Snow White the only one we've done of these so far? Wow, okay. So we did want to kind of make this setup a bit more of a regular thing. So, like, once a month or, like, once every couple of months, maybe. Whatever we can do to make it work. But you actually came to me with this saying that this is one... I haven't held up the film. We're talking about the Black Cauldron, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that. 1985 film. And you came to me with this one and say like we should do this one in person because it's one that we really enjoy. This was an absolute pleasure to go back to. So I had this one on video as a kid, and from reading about it, that was probably like a very new release because this film bombed at the box office. This film lost the studio upwards of 20 million. I think like 23, 24 million or something like that, which is a lot of money. And because of that, they didn't actually... This thing didn't get a home release, apparently, till 1998. So
that's a good point. Was this the first home release in our lifetime, then? First Disney home release, technically?
Well, I mean, they would have bought a lot of other ones out, didn't they?
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
But, I mean, that's a crazy amount of time. You know, well over a decade before it's even released to the public. I guess they probably thought, well, the public don't really give a shit about this film, so why even bother with it? But... That seems crazy to me now, like living in a world where a film will come out, you'll go and see it, and then it just won't get a release for like a decade. Like that's mad. So yeah, I had this one on video. I watched it really, really often as a kid. We've got SeaWorld Man. He says, great angle. He loves the new angles. Like slowly but surely, I feel like SeaWorld Man's mapping out the entire layout of my room. Like we've given him like this bit today, so he's like, there's a door with a coat hanging on it. There is an axe hanging on that wall. You've seen that when I've had like my curtains open, you can see the reflections of my Lord of the Rings swords on this wall in front of us. But yeah, so this film for me, like earliest childhood memories were I loved this shit. I thought it was great. I acknowledged the darkness of it and that it was a lot scarier than some other Disney films. But I watched this way more than I did Snow White. As I mentioned when we did Snow White, I don't think I actually watched all of that film until I was in my teenage years because I had like massive childhood trauma from the Magic Mirror. I never made it through it. Whereas this one I thought, oh, the Horned King's kind of creepy, but I kind of liked that, and it had that element of... It's that classic thing in like fantasy and like family films where, yeah, there is that element of danger and there are some scary bits in it, but it's still like a really fun adventure. And ultimately with a happy ending at the end. So, it's all good. You appreciate those darker moments in it. And growing up with a lot of 80s films, you got that in pretty much any family film that came out with some really scary bits. So I was never, like, traumatized by this film or anything like that. I just thought it was like a cool fantasy film. And I always loved fantasy stuff as a kid, like Willow, eventually much later Lord of the Rings, and sort of like the swashbuckling fantasy films, sword and sorcery. I loved all that shit. So I'm just going to get to the comments real quick, and then I'm going to hand over to you. See what man says, really nice seeing you together, thumbs up. You can do this on your camera, I can't do it on mine. When Dale's on his camera and he does this at home, you get like a little there's a little emoji bubble that comes up with a thumbs up, and
CGI
doesn't work. See what man says, didn't you have a desk lamp, or you needed to get one? I used to have one when I used to do my reaction videos on the channel that shall not be named, but I never actually got one for here. So it'd be good to get, just to give me sort of like a bit of backlight. So you guys get my good angle, right? That's why I need some lighting, because the lights are on, believe it or not. But I mean,
the bowl patch if you had the light.
Oh, it just radiates off. Yeah, maybe. Jackson says, "Wow, your compositing is really impressive. It's like you're really in the same room."
No.
It's like amazing, isn't it? Anyway, Black Cauldron. Tell me about some of your early memories, because I don't think you've told me about these.
I never watched it until I was about 18. Like, I never watched it as a kid. It was my girlfriend at the time recommended. She was like, "Oh, you should watch it. You'll really like this." And I'd never basically really even heard of it. And it was, I think, the newest one that I say the newest one, like when I was a kid, obviously I watched loads of them, like Beauty and the Beast, all that sort of stuff, but it was the newest one I remember watching going, this is amazing. It was the first new Disney movie to me that was really, really cool. I was really excited to get back to this, and like I said, I watched it 4 times over the past week or so. So it's the least Disney feeling out of all of them, but I think that's great because it's a nice little swerve and it's a good movie. It's not a swerve of like, what did you do?
Yeah,
it's a swerve of like, okay, cool, awesome. Like it's really, really good, and it's a surprising one in a way. Like if you go through watching, especially doing this when we're watching from Snow White all the way through, I think it's very similar to Snow White. There's a lot of similarities in the way like the Queen's castle looks and everything. There's a lot of similarities, and I think it's great. But it's, if you watch them all in order like we're doing, it's the most not U-turn, that's the wrong phrase, but you know what I mean, it's gone on a little tangent of, okay, we're trying something new, and I think it works very, very well. I think it's nice to have that kind of change. It's like we've been talking about, obviously, the drops when the movie's gone downhill, all that sort of stuff. This has kind of gone on a tangent of like, I didn't expect that, in a way, which I think is it's great. It's a nice little adventure. You've got the party of characters, you've got a princess whose name I won't mention in this. You've got everything to make it a kind of Dungeons and Dragons, Lord of the Rings kind of movie, which is really, really good.
Yeah, and that, as I say, like I used to live and breathe that stuff. So you came to this one quite late then. So even after you've watched this 4 times in relatively short amount of time, 4 times in 2 weeks, does it still hold up after that 4 times? You're not completely utterly sick of it at this point?
No, it makes me want to read. The only thing I'll say, the thing I like the least about so I was thinking of the books for a second.
Yeah.
But the thing I like about this the least probably is the princess isn't fleshed out enough. Like, she is pretty boring, and that's what's made me, like, I've never read the books, and that's what's making me go, I'm going to read the book. I really want to, because I want to see her fleshed out a bit. I want to see more. I think it's paced very well. It doesn't need to be any longer. I think her being fleshed out, the movie would be paced, it wouldn't be paced as well. So I think it works perfectly for everything that's done. I just think it's probably worth reading the books now, I think. So it's made me want to do that a lot more. Yeah,
no, same. I mean, the series of books is called the Chronicles of Prydain by the author Lloyd Alexander. I've always been aware that they've been based on books and that they're based on Welsh mythology, and I love mythology. I find, no matter where it is in the world, I find all different mythologies fascinating. I'd love to pick up the books as well, because the author, after the film came out, it's a very sort of like safe review, I guess, he gave of the film when it came out. He didn't want to kind of badmouth Disney because he was probably getting a lot of money from it that they made a film on his books, and he was saying, like, I really enjoyed the film, I thought it was an enjoyable film, but it ain't the same as the books. Like, the books are totally different, totally in a different vein, much more fleshed out, much more in-depth, which is gonna happen when you've got a series of 5 books. Even this film is condensing 2 of those 5 books into one movie, probably combining characters, losing characters and everything, as happens with adaptation. So I'd really like to pick up the books as well. And it's interesting you mentioned Snow White. When the rights to these books was picked up by Disney in the early 70s, work on the film kind of began around like 1973. A couple of the animators said that, and they said that if it had, I guess this was in hindsight after the film was being made, after it had already been made, they said that if it had been done properly, it might have been, quote, as good as Snow White. It would have been very different. Oh, I say different to Snow White. I mean different in the sense that Snow White, regardless of all the darkness in there and like the foreboding castle of the evil queen, it's still at its core a very sort of whimsical fairy tale. Whereas this one is dark. There is gore. There are deleted scenes of henchmen getting melted, like the flesh dripping off their bones, kind of thing. You've got the Horn King, who's this terrifying skeleton man, who's kind of like Skeletor from He-Man. So it still would have been a lot darker, I think. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. And this film, for me, I still really enjoy it for what it is. I think it's a good final product. But it's a very frustrating film to me the more you read about it and the more you find out what could have been and what was removed and the original ideas behind it.
It's like if you pitted this and Snow White side by side. Snow White's your general Disney movie. In a way, it's dark, it's this, it's that. But it's, like you say, it's whimsical. It's got the song pieces, you know, the characters sing, it's got this, it's got that. Whereas this doesn't. It's kind of like, you know, the first few Final Fantasy, well, I said the first few, like the first at least 15, they're quite, you know, they're a certain sort of tone. Whereas number 16, there's a lot of blood. Chocobos get beheaded. There's a lot of...
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
On a different tangent. You're like, okay, cool. But it works really, really well. And it's great. And it's fitting with the series enough that it's like... I mean, most people, anyone I know that's played it as well, is always saying this is exactly how, you know, they imagine a Final Fantasy story to be. So it works. It's the same with this. It's what you expect a Disney movie to be in a lot of ways. It works so well. It's not a tangent where you go, that ain't a Disney movie. But it's different enough that's like, okay, cool. You know,
yeah.
It's one of those, and I think, you know, having a song or anything like that, it just wouldn't work in the same light as it. But would it have gotten? Would it have not bombed? That's the question. Personally, for me, I prefer it not to have that. Like, you know, like it as I think.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, I was going to say perfect movie, but in a lot of ways, it is like there's a lot they don't do wrong. There's a lot. There's more they could have done, I guess. But you know, as a movie, it is like I say, fleshing out the princess. What would be the point? The pacing would go off and all this. So it's great. But when you look at it as a perspective of the rest of the world, would it have bombed if there was like, let's say she sang. Let's just say she had a song. Would it have bombed? Or would it have maybe just a little bit more?
Yeah, I think you're looking for those kind of Disney-isms, those traits that we've come to expect from Disney films now. And we haven't even, I wouldn't even say we've hit the stride of Disney films with all those big, massive musical numbers that we're talking about, which of course will be in pretty much all of the Disney Renaissance films. Even the last few Disney films, like look at Fox and the Hound, that had music in it, but there wasn't loads of it, and it was kind of sprinkled throughout the movie. Even before then, like, I guess Robin Hood, you could say there's a bit of music in there. The Rescuers, 2 sort of pre-recorded songs, but nothing like within the actual film itself, sung by any characters.
But it's the first without any actual music.
Yeah, and this, you know, this is just purely a score, and this is why it's frustrating to me. I think it's a really bold, daring film for Disney to make. It's completely different, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It shows how versatile they are as an animation company. But we had a comment from last week talking about The Fox and the Hound, how it's a very frustrating film for them in that it's, you know, you get like really intense scenes. And we kind of touched on this in our review as well. How you have the really intense final act of the bear and how it's realistic and it's you know, you're on your edge of your seat. And the opening as well with that where Todd's mom's trying to like get him to safety. But then they kind of throw in that cutesy shit with the birds and the caterpillar and things like that. And it's kind of...
Whereas this doesn't do that.
It doesn't know what it wants to be. Yeah, whereas this film, it could have been more serious. It could have been the first proper Disney film for young adults. You know, apparently this was the first one that was rated PG. I'm guessing that's probably in the States because I know my video and my DVD copy right here still has it as a U.
Or is it like re-release changes? Like Batman when it's now a 12.
I mean, it could be. This is still like a relatively sort of semi-recent.
Do you know what? I never understand the BBFC
but...
ratings though, because you'll see it if you buy a DVD of Batman 89, it'll say 15. But when we went to cinema to see it, was a 12. So I never really get those ratings. Like sometimes they leave it on just as a, you know, that's what it's always been, or sometimes they change it because that's what it is now. I don't really ever get it.
I'd say it could have been recertified, yeah, even since this one, and maybe that's the case, or maybe America has, because I think like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, we've got that as a PG, and over there they call it like a PG-13, which I guess would be is a 12. So there could be differences between different countries, I guess. But for me, like, they could have gone more, like, if they wanted to make a darker Disney film completely so totally and tonally different from what had come before, then that's fine. Go that route, you know, make it as dark as you want, have a score in there, have no songs, have violence and gore and creepy imagery in there, but don't have the cutesy shit. And there's moments in this film where, like when they go to the land of fairy, if you look at the original deleted scene version of that, because there's so many deleted scenes in this film as well, like allegedly 12 minutes of this film were removed by Katzenberg, who was the head of the studio at the time. He went in personally and started removing bits out of the film, bits from test screenings that were considered too scary, too frightening, too alienating for younger children. And what you're kind of left with is this weird in-between movie, because you have like Creeper in there, who's like the comedy sidekick to the villain, and you have Gurgi, who's kind of like a Gollum-like character, I guess. You know, is a comic relief
Gollum-like.
thing.
He is Gollum, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah. The voice is very, very similar. Well, I guess this came first, but that version of the voice, I suppose. But then you have like the Land of Fairy, and yeah, from the original version, it's much more tonally consistent with the rest of the movie. They're still kind of like gnomish characters, elvish characters.
Probably the weakest part of the movie, I think.
Yeah, but then in the final version, you can tell, you know, oh, we've got to get some like cutie kid fairies in there to appeal to the younger demographic.
The weakest part, I think. It was very, you know, when you watch a movie and it kind of slows down a bit, that you go, all right, that was that part.
Yeah.
So it felt very, like you say, it was done to kind of please the masses in a little bit. Yeah. It's kind of like putting Let It Go in Kingdom Hearts 3. Yeah. Like, no, but that was great. I love the song. But the point I'm making is it's that one where you go, that was done.
Let's get moving. Yeah.
Yeah.
And because of that, there's plot elements that have been changed from either previous deleted scenes or probably through removing scenes have had to like rework things. But that's another example. That scene in the Land of Fairy, Henwen is like, it's kind of like the One Ring. It's like, right, we've got to get this thing to safety. We've got to get this thing out of here before the enemy comes searching for it. And that's kind of like your Act 1 thrust, really, is Tyron taking Henwen, trying to get to a safe house, them getting ambushed along the way, and then Tyron having to rescue Henwen. So that's like a big deal. And then as soon as that's done, Henwen's just pretty much useless to the plot and isn't needed, isn't used, and the fairies are just like, oh, we make sure she gets home okay, you know. And then I think literally in like the very last couple of seconds of the film, you just see Henwen back home with Dorban, like nothing's changed and everything's fine. In some of the earlier drafts in the Land of Fairy, they use Henwen again to find the actual location of the cauldron, and they find that it's in the marshes of Morva. Whereas in the final movie, one of the fairies just goes, oh yeah, I know where the cauldron is, it's in Morva. Let's go there. And then they go. So it kind of, it makes Henwen kind of pointless to the plot. And I think a lot of the characters are like that, unfortunately. Like, you have the layout for like a great ensemble of characters, you know, supporting characters with Princess Alomwe and Fluda Flem, who's kind of like your comedy sidekick. But none of them really get enough. Even Taran, as a main character, never really gets enough substance as a character.
He is, I do like him as a character, but he's not. He's kind of like, I don't know to explain, compare him to at the moment. But there's characters, you know, where like there's a main character and they're cool, but then at the same time you look and like anyone can really be the main character. He's kind of one of those where he is obviously the main character. He has a little bit more than the others, but not so much more. They're all quite equal. This is what I mean about it being a party of characters. Like, if it was a video game, you'd play as any one of the characters. It would be a party to play as, which I think is really cool. It's that, like I say, Dungeons and Dragons-y, Final Fantasy kind of thing to it, which is cool.
I mean, they all fulfill their roles in fantasy. You know, there's the princess, the damsel, she's a bit headstrong kind of thing. You know, you see this with like Princess Leia in the original Star Wars, and even in like fantasy archetypes, that's always there. The princess who's there to be rescued. Taran, who's like the farm boy. It's the hero's journey. He comes from nothing, but he dreams of greatness. He dreams of being a great warrior. A little bit, yeah. I was going to say Luke Skywalker, the farm boy who dreams of greatness, looking to the sky.
Kind of like, he's not born a hero.
Yeah,
you know, it's that kind of, and Sora's even given a bit more shit because he's not born the hero, and then it's like, well, Riku is, and you're like, yeah, but me. That is basically the whole thing, but yeah, that sort of thing, which is cool.
And then you've got Fluda, who's, as I say, like the comic relief. He's a bard in this. I think in the book, as I say, like the book probably goes into it in more depth. I think that Fluda's, if someone's read the book, they can probably correct me on this, but from what I read, I think that Fluda's actually a king who has turned down the kingship and is just quite happy being a bard, but he is destined to be a king or something. I think that's in the book.
Also, the sword doesn't look like a lightsaber at some point. There is a point where the sword looks like a lightsaber. Yeah. So he is like Luke Skywalker.
and he oh, it's not on this front cover. There's a front cover where he's like holding it. It might be on the original video cover actually, which I don't have on hand. He's like the original Star Wars poster. He's kind of like holding the sword completely
He-Man.
upright like that.
He-Man.
Yeah, or He-Man. Yeah, by the power of Grayskull. Yes.
Why does the Horn King never talk about eating bacon though? Because he wants to kill the pig. Why does he never talk about eating bacon? That's the one thing that's wrong with this. There should be a bacon like joke or something, but it's not. And it makes me very sad.
I mean, Henwen would be tasty.
Exactly.
That'd be a tasty pig. Yeah.
So, yeah. If you're gonna kill a pig, why not eat it?
See, I was really confused with the Horned King, because his whole plan in this is to resurrect, is to create the Cauldron Born. He's been gathering the land's greatest warriors and grave robbing and bringing dead bodies in, which you get a hint of, which I probably never really picked up on as a kid all that much, but when that guy's wheeling the cart in and you see like a dead arm like fall out, I would have seen that, but like watching it as an adult, you're like, oh fuck, they're going and pillaging all these dead bodies. It's to resurrect them as a ghost army, this unkillable army, like Lord of the Rings again, an army of the dead, to go out and just lay waste to the land, essentially. And he needs the power of the cauldron to resurrect, like necromancy, basically, to bring all these dead bodies back to life. But I was like, but you're a skeleton man? You're undead as well, so how are you alive? So I don't know if the Horned King in the book is actually like a skeleton ghoulish man, or if he's just a dude.
He doesn't have eyes at the beginning, then he does at the end.
Well, it's when he gets angry. When he gets angry, he gets the red eyes, doesn't he?
Then again, that's kind of anime based. Like you have a lot of anime characters, they have like just no eyes, like they're shut all the time. As soon as they get angry, they open their eyes.
Yeah,
it's that kind of vibe you get from it. So yeah.
But I mean, I love the Horned King. I mean, the look of the character is very striking. It's terrifying actually when you compare it to like other Disney villains. I'd put him in the same kind of evil league as like Chernabog from Fantasia and Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty.
I think
like on that
a character he's similar to is I don't remember the character's name from Princess of the Frog. What's his name?
Oh, Dr. Facilier.
Yeah, only because they're very standout villains that if let's say we brought them into Kingdom Hearts, we just put the villain in there, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't just the world, it was just that villain. I think that those two stand out a lot to me, which yeah.
But I mean, the Horned King has so much of a presence in this. Apparently, like the original design, they were going to go for quite a Viking, like Nordic appearance. Yeah, Thor, Viking helmet, horned helmet, big red beard, big bellied, like fiery temper kind of thing. So yeah, essentially like Thor, like a Viking. Then that was reworked to have just a hood, I think, with like just eyes visible. And then it became like the skeleton man that we see now. But what an absolute presence. The Horned King's first appearance in the movie. Where the music as well, we'll talk about the score later, it's like this really creepy music, and you just get that shot of the back of his head that like raises up, and then you get his feet walking down the steps into the mist, and then that slow pan up, and then this fucking terrifying skeleton man, and then of course John Hurt, the late great John Hurt, the voice, absolutely chilling, because with a voice like that, King, you think like, oh, this really bombastic thing, but it's the moments where, when he's like going crazy, he's like, get up you fools, like curses and everything like that. He's not scary to me. It's those moments of the quiet, like methodical nature of him, where he won't say a thing. There's the bit where Creeper has to deliver some news to him, some bad news that they escaped.
Yeah.
And he's just quiet hand gestures. He's like, come here. And you're like, oh, fuck, like the boss is angry. He's like, when he doesn't use his words and he's quiet, he's even more scary.
It's that thing where you have like a manager when they don't say anything. You're like,
yes, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a scene that if I'm going to compare it to a scene from Star Wars, and this is what I love about it, and is Darth Vader at the very end of Empire Strikes Back, and this is like one of my favorite villain moments ever. It's right after the heroes have escaped from Bespin, and the Imperials are chasing after them, and the Falcon just makes the jump to light speed right at the last second. And they escape, and Vader's just staring out the window, like they've just disappeared, and he's just still staring out the window, and he turns around and he just walks off without saying a word, and all the Imperials are like, fuck, like carrot, and he just stalks off in silence and storms away. Love that. I love moments like that where a villain doesn't have to be like shouty or megalomaniacal or crazy or anything. It's just those moments of quiet, and the Horned King captures that perfectly. I think with the look of the character, the voice, and the score. It's a really unique villain. It's a very underrated villain. Like, no, I feel like no one talks about the Horned King. And maybe as a character themselves, like maybe there isn't an insane amount of depth to him. Maybe there is in the book. Maybe there's more history to the character that we don't know about.
But he does get a villain cover when they did the villain covers for Disney movies.
Yeah,
he did actually get one.
Yeah.
He did actually get one, which is a shame because I got a couple of them, but I didn't see that one.
Yeah.
Shop at the time. But he does actually get one, so that is kind of cool. It's
making a
surprising.
comeback.
It's surprising in a way because that's not one you'd expect to get one.
Yeah.
But you'd expect Maleficent, and she didn't get one.
Yeah, that was
insane.
Weird. That's insane, you know, because she's only one of the biggest.
I think I had like Jafar and Chernabog, but
yeah,
it's really weird. But yeah, he would have been a great one.
I wonder if I mean I haven't been to Disneyland Paris since I was like 11. This is probably more of a Disney World thing. I wonder if the Horned King's a character they kind of wheel out around Halloween time. You know how they kind of change the Haunted Mansion and have like Nightmare Before Christmas characters in there as well?
I really wish that was true, but I have this feeling that they don't do that.
Yeah.
Because I think it'd be too unknown and people would be confused.
It'd be terrifying.
I do think it'd be weird because a lot of like, because you know when they go take pictures with them and stuff like that, people will probably see it and go, "Who's that?" Like,
yeah.
I don't think they would, but that would be really cool.
I'd love that. Yeah, no, if they bring them back.
The dark side of Disney.
There's a lot of dark side to Disney. We've had a comment from a while back. Brian says, "Have you watched the Willow Disney Plus show?"
I have not.
I didn't watch it, but I did watch a series of reviews on it, which kind of abridged the episodes and talked about them, and it looked absolutely fucking atrocious, as most modern Disney things are. And what's hilarious is, I think it was like within the year, Disney scrubbed it off Disney Plus. You can't watch that now. The only way you can watch Disney's Willow series is if you pirate it. It's just gone. Like, it hasn't been released on DVD or Blu-ray or anything like that, and they took it down within a year. It's like they didn't want people to see it. But yeah, it looked awful. It's you know, bringing all the modern agenda and the sensibilities into it. Just really bad acting, even from Warwick Davis as well. Like, it looked like he was phoning it in as well as the main character.
He should play Thingy in a live action. Gurgi, what's his name?
Gurgi.
That's it. For some reason, I'm terrible with names in this movie. Every single one, I'm just really bad. I think it's the Welsh names, and my brain just scrambled all the letters together. That everyone I go, now it's completely wrong.
Well, I mean, I think Andy Serkis should play Gurgi because he is. I've always thought that, you know, his voice, his mannerisms, the function that the character serves as well, in a way. Now I'm thinking about it, yeah, it kind of.
He's quite like a Womble, isn't he?
He looks like a Womble, yeah, a Womble with a moustache. Did any of the Wombles have moustaches?
I'm thinking of
Uncle Bulgaria.
That's what I was thinking of, but he
Maybe.
doesn't, does he? I can't remember.
I'm gonna Google it right now.
Yeah, I can't remember. I did actually look at the Wombles the other day, and I can't remember why.
Uncle Bulgaria.
You know they're not real.
Oh, he's got a beard. He's rocking a beard.
Oh no, yeah, he is. He does. He has the whole old man's beard thing. So
yeah,
he's kind of like Uncle Bulgaria without the glasses.
But yeah, now I think about it, Gurgi, his function in the story is very similar to Gollum. He's, well, not only sort of like in the voice itself, which, you know, when he's like, "Oh, master munches and crunches," you know, that kind of thing. It's very similar to. Apparently, Andy Serkis took inspiration from the voice of this.
He is the more kid-friendly Gollum in the sense of Gollum's not this evil thing, but he's not like. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a slight like innocence to him in a way, and Gurgi's the same, but he's more family friendly. Like he is a good guy kind of thing. Yeah. But yeah, He's the guide as well. You know how Gollum's like, "Oh, I know the way into Mordor. Follow me," kind of thing. Gurgi's like, "Oh, I found the piggy's footsteps. Like, follow me, master," kind of thing. The fact that he keeps referring to the main character as master as well, that's what Frodo does too. And even kind of at the end, because Gollum is the catalyst that ultimately destroys the ring. You know, when he's in the book, when Gollum finally reclaims the ring and he's jumping up and down, he accidentally slips off the cliff edge in the book and falls into the lava, which destroys the ring. Gurgi, sort of similar in a way, but like Gurgi falls into the cauldron. He willingly sacrificed himself there, so I guess that's the difference. But he sacrificed himself, which ultimately ends in destroying the big bad thing, you know, in the cauldron in this film and the ring in the Lord of the Rings. So similar functionality between the two, and I guess that comes with it. I don't know if that's just a mythology thing, because, you know, Tolkien himself was heavily influenced by various different mythologies. Or if that is just the impact of the Lord of the Rings being a massive deal that it was. That's a good point, and I should know this. I believe. Oh God, I believe it was released in the 50s. I think, wasn't it? Yeah, this was the 60s.
So it would have still been like fairly fresh, I guess. as if I don't know the date in which it was published. I feel absolutely ashamed now that I don't know this. Yeah, 1954. The first book was
yeah, so it was
released.
it was about 10 years before.
Yeah. I mean, that had a huge impact, the Lord of the Rings book as well, so maybe that did have an effect on the author as well. I'm not sure. I like Gurgi. I can see how he might be annoying to some people, but I really I like all the characters in this.
He's relevant. I think he's relevant.
Yeah.
He's not an annoying sidekick that you go, what's the point? He is relevant.
It's really depressing right before he sacrifices himself when he's like, Taran has many friends.
Yeah.
Gurgi has no friends, and then just fucking just commits. I can't. Can I say this on YouTube with the censors?
Where he commits suicide.
He unalives himself by jumping into the cauldron.
Unalives himself.
The final act of this film is really frustrating to me. It's frustrating because, as I mentioned before, a lot of stuff got removed from it, and I feel like the third act of this film is the biggest offender of that. They build up to the Cauldron Born, and they get resurrected, and they're thwarted before they've even got out the gate. It's very last minute.
Yeah, it's kind of like they did it, and then there was always someone going back, going, "No, we need to change this. We need to change this." Kind of like what they did with Fair Warning when Eddie was like, "Let's do this. Let's do this." It was kind of the Eddie Van Halen kind of album, and it was quite darker. And they didn't get the airplay that the rest of the Van Halen albums got. They had to actually pay for it. They had to pay like $5,000 to each station to play their songs. Which I don't know if you knew that.
I did know that.
They had to pay about $5,000 to each station to play their songs to get it in heavy rotation, so it actually got a platinum rating like the rest.
But that's the point of these. They're fun and educational, and for Van Halen fans at least. So
Yes.
We've got 5 people watching apparently. Sound off in the comments if you're a Van Halen fan. I have a feeling,
I've learnt a lot.
I have a feeling that Carl might be. I know that Carl's into a lot of sort of like 80s rock music.
There's going to be someone
like
at some point that watches this and goes, "Oh, I'm learning."
Yeah.
Just one person that's watched every video just because they're learning.
They only watch it for the Van Halen reference that gets. They just skip past all the videos, skipping for that
Do you reckon we can
reference.
timestamp it and see if that's like the most watched bit for some people?
SeaWorld Man says we should start timestamping all of the Van Halen references, but that means now we're 25 films deep
That's
with this
so
one.
weird though. That
I'm
it's
gonna
25.
Yeah, I know.
That's a quarter of 100.
Yeah.
That's many. I'll be 30 by the time this finishes.
Well, we've got 61 Disney films released currently. Moana 2 will probably be out by the time we get to that, so 62. But we're coming up to. We're like a month away from hitting the big 30.
Is that the next one?
I think Moana 2 is out later this year. Yeah. Let me have a look. As I say, it was meant to be a TV show, but yeah, it's been reworked into a movie, so I don't know how that's.
Will
gonna
that be
go.
any good though? If it's meant to be a TV show, kind of like Beauty and the Beast 3. But then again, I'm not seeing it, so I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, here we go. Development on Moana 2 originally began in 2020. 2020 as a television series for Disney Plus before being reworked into a theatrical sequel. Yeah, November 27th is when we're going to get that Moana 2, so we'll see what that's like. SeaWorld Man says, are there any Disney films or non-Disney films you'd get... Hang on. Let me move these comments over a little bit, because they're kind of getting trimmed off a little bit. Are there any Disney or non-Disney movies you'd get rid of?
Well, just in life. There's many.
Yeah, well, I mean, can we count the Star Wars sequels as a Disney movie? Like,
yeah,
I'd get rid of
I'd get rid of all the TV series of Star Wars as well. Every single one is shit. And I don't care what you say about Mandalorian, they should have never happened.
Yeah.
None of them. So, those.
You know, for all the people that love Mandalorian, it's like, well, when was the last time you rewatched it?
I've watched the first 3 episodes.
Yeah.
I've never watched any more. I know you've watched a lot more, and I know I've watched bits like when Luke Skywalker comes in, and that looked kind of cool. Like there was bits, but as an overall, it was very
yeah,
it's all right. Like you know what I mean. And I guess it made me think about how much I love Star Wars when I watched through it, and I didn't bother watching it. I thought if I love Star Wars more, I would. But then I thought it's just not. To me, Star Wars is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's it.
Yeah.
6
yeah.
Done, and there is no more. I like the. You know, like Knights. I was going to say Knights of the Round Table, Knights of the Old Republic. Like all the stuff beforehand. I think that stuff's cool. Anything that's presented after 6 is just crap. Like I'm not.
I mean, I like the old expanded universe. Not that I've read an extensive amount of it, but I know some of the storylines, like
bits and it's,
what used to be the old canon, you know, and then before it all got wiped. Speaking of Star Wars, though, and 1 to 6, the medals that I get, the walking challenge medals that I did an unboxing from last week, they've just announced Star Wars ones, and they've shown off the original trilogy medals, and they've only done 1 to 6, which is great. There's 2 packages you can get. You can get 4, 5, and 6. You can do that trilogy, or they're going to unveil 1, 2, and 3 in the next couple of days.
Do you reckon that's why Carrie Fisher died? Her heart couldn't go with being in another Star Wars movie going, this shouldn't happen, and it just gave way.
Oh, no.
Do you reckon why that happened? I don't know. They are the reason she died.
She went like, oh god, they killed Han Solo off in the first one,
Yeah.
they killed Luke off in the last one, I'm next.
So I can't do it. And then that was it. So they are the reason that she died.
Oh no. Carl says you should watch Adam Sandler's Airheads. There's loads of rock references and just a really fun film.
Do you know what is a
I haven't
shit film
seen that.
though? Funny People with Adam Sandler. That's terrible. So I'm not going near an
I
Adam Sandler
have-
movie again. Well,
I
that's a
haven't
bit harsh.
seen many Adam Sandler movies.
I used to love Adam Sandler when I was a kid, but then I saw Funny People. It was because it's called Funny People. I watched it with someone. They went, "Oh, we should watch a funny movie. It's called Funny People," and it was not funny. And I was like, "Why would you call a movie Funny People?"
When a film has to tell you
Yeah.
that yeah. I remember liking Anger Management, but that's more for Jack Nicholson
That
being
was
in
great. Like, yeah.
it. I enjoy that one.
It's like, you know when you have a movie with a giant cast of characters where they've got like everyone's ridiculously like A-listed. You know it's going to be shit because they don't
Movie
have
43.
to make it good.
Do you remember when that came out?
Because they don't have to make it good.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, everyone can be. So it's kind of like, what was that Meteor movie on Netflix? Did you see that?
Oh yeah, that got nominated for like fucking Best Picture or something.
I
did.
watched maybe half of it. It was boring. But
It was
I
long.
watched it because Ariana Grande was in it and I thought, I need to watch this. And then her thing was done and then I was like, she's crap now. Turn off. And that was it. But yeah, it's one of those. Didn't I have like Jonah Hill, Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yeah.
What's her name with the boobs?
Oh,
Not Pamela Anderson.
No,
Jennifer Lawrence.
Jennifer,
yeah, because she was naked at one point. Basically loads of people, and it just doesn't have to be good, does it?
What's
One
it
of those.
called? Don't Look Up. That was
That's
it.
Yeah, it was.
That was 2021. Shit, that was a while ago.
Yeah, during lockdown.
Yeah,
That was a thing. Yeah.
I remember thinking like the idea for it was kind of fun,
It was.
and there's certain parts of it where I'm like, yeah, that's how I can imagine a situation like this would go down, but. It was pushing 3 hours, I think. I think it was like 2 hours 40. I'm like, you don't need to make a film like this that long. It was a little bit egregious, I thought.
Yeah. But Wolf of Wall Street, 3 hours, that was worthy of 3 hours.
That was great. The pacing of that film, yeah, I love
I've
that
watched
film.
that so many times.
It's so good. What was I going to say? Yes.
Just like the pacing of this. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been like well, how long is this film?
It's only... It's
77 minutes.
Oh, I thought it was like 8. Yeah, I knew it was around that time.
But obviously there was 12 minutes cut out of it, which
Yeah.
would have boosted it back to the normal time. There's actually a great playlist, so you can actually see a lot of these deleted scenes and sort of theories as to what the deleted scenes would have been. The soundtrack, I guess we could talk about the soundtrack a little bit as well. The composer is Elmer Bernstein, did the music to Ghostbusters. Very similar to Ghostbusters. I mean, Ghostbusters came out a year before this, in 1984. This film was pretty much done by 1984, but they took it back into the editing room, and this was pushed back to the following year of 1985 when it was theatrically released. So, he would have been working on the score for this and for Ghostbusters around the same time, probably. The Gozer theme in Ghostbusters is pretty much exactly the same as the Horn Kings theme in this. It's very, very similar. But I like that sound to it.
Not now, I want to say.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I just want to talk about the music, and then we'll get onto that. I really like the score for this one. The instrument that gets used, which I actually forget the name of it. That was it. The Ondes Martino. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation, but it's very similar to a theremin. It's this electrical current, and you can manipulate the synthetic sound to it. The synthwave sound to it. I think it really works. It gives that kind of like creepy, ghostly, eerie atmosphere to the whole film, and I think it stands out above a lot of other Disney scores, to be honest. And the telltale sign is, I think that this soundtrack didn't get like a proper release. I think that it got a proper release only once, and then it was lost or something, or it fell out of print, and then someone found a bootleg of it, and you can find it now, thankfully, on YouTube. You've got the whole thing. There are moments in the soundtrack that get removed in the film, and you can actually hear those edits in the film, especially towards the end with The Cauldron Born. There's like really abrupt cuts in the soundtrack, but you can hear the full tracks, and you can kind of in your mind go, right, there's an extended like 10 seconds there. That was probably some violent content that got removed, or this track's extended by an extra minute, like maybe there was a subplot here, or like there was a bit of the action scene that would have continued here. And it's fascinating. It's fascinating that I'd say this is like probably one of the most edited Disney films, isn't it? I would say. I mean, we haven't watched them all. We could read about other ones that got chopped up.
Because we've had a look at a lot of edits they made. I think this has the actual most footage.
Yeah.
Edited out, which
So I mean, I'd love to see that film, but it was Katzenberg who just took it into the editing room, and all the animators were like, stop stop what you're doing. Like, please don't do this. And it's annoying because I'm going to compare this to another Disney film, which we're going to get to in like a good few months' time, but Hunchback of Notre Dame, which is probably, in my opinion, the best Disney film. Like, I think that film's a work of art.
I've seen it like twice.
But again,
it's not
that it's that in between. It's that it wants to be mature, it wants to be for adults, and there's a lot of adult concepts in there.
It's the fact that there's a guy that wants to kill gypsies. It's great.
Yeah, it's you know, and he's like lusting after Esmeralda, and he's like really suggestive towards her.
Do you know what's so weird about him though as a character? It's that serial killer. If I can't have her, no one can.
Yeah.
And so many serial killers are like that. They kill the people they love, and it's very dark when you think about it.
You know, he's a God-fearing man, and he believes what he's doing is right, and he feels like he's being tempted by the devil, and to burn Esmeralda will get rid of his, like, the devil inside of him kind of thing, but he kind of wants her, and he's lusting after. There's so many things in Hunchback of Notre Dame, but then you have the comic relief gargoyles, and that's the cutesy Disney shit, and it's like Disney can never go all out mature for something, even if it, you know, and to the detriment of what could be like an artistic you know, presentation. It's like, we've got to get those Disneyisms in there.
The weird thing about that is, like, I get that, why they do that, but at the same time, it's like Disney Plus has loads of shit on it. Like, I think Criminal Minds is on it. I can't remember. It has, like, American Horror Story. It has loads of, like, mature things on it as well. But when you see Disney come up, you don't feel mature. It's like, it's kids. And that's, as much as I get it, that means Disney's always going to be shrouded in that, where as Disney, as much as Disney's great in a lot of ways, is basically Mickey Mouse rules the world. It's like he owns everything, and that's essentially what it is. And I kind of get why they do it for classics, but they've also already broken the rule with the whole making sequels classics, which is stupid. So I don't know. Yeah,
I mean, if you're looking at other properties, we've got Deadpool 3 coming out, which is going to be R-rated, and that's under the Disney moniker now. So, but if we're talking about animated, if we're talking about proper Disney, like the animated shit, then yeah, I don't see them straying into that. But if it's frustrating because it's like, well, why pick this as your next film? Why go, that would be a good thing to adapt if you know that to do justice to the books, it needs to be dark, it needs to be mature, it needs to be everything that Disney isn't at that point. Like why adapt it?
They edit out the guns in Port Royal in Kingdom Hearts 2. The pirates have guns in Japan, but then in the Western version they have bow and arrows.
Yeah.
It's the same with Zigbar's sniper, like his sniper shot, what you call it, crosshair. That's it. They change it in the Western versions as well to like circles, and it's so I think there's a lot of, they try and keep it as a kid friendly thing, but I do wish they would go more adult in some ways. They don't need to go, you know, full on, but if they just don't include that, because in a way you got to look at it and go, it bombed anyway. You know, they could. If I think it's one of those things, if you commit, you'll do a lot better, but Disney won't. It's like now, everything's woke, isn't it? They'll always... And I think this is the kind of thing we start to see in these movies. We go, you've done that, and then you start seeing more and more. They start doing it over and over and over again. Yeah,
it's what they think works, but the thing is, it ain't working, and a lot of their projects are bombing and losing a lot of money for the company. Now, back in the day, they would have seen this, that their films were losing money, and go, right, let's try and not do that again. What did we do wrong? Let's change this up this time. This time they're just doubling down. They're just like, I don't know if it's like an ego thing, or if they're so narcissistic that they can't see why their projects are failing. They just seem completely clueless as to why, but I mean, we all know the reasons why it is. Let's just get to a few comments. Seawoman says, didn't need to make Killers of the Flower Moon over 3 hours. Oh yeah, that was the Martin Scorsese film, which I still haven't watched yet, actually. That was Leonardo DiCaprio, although that doesn't narrow it down because Scorsese has Leonardo DiCaprio in pretty much all of his films that he brings out now. But I heard that one was pretty good.
Isn't he kind of like Quentin Tarantino in the sense of they have custody of Leonardo DiCaprio? They kind of like, they do that every now and then.
Shared custody.
Yeah.
Tarantino gets him on weekends.
Yeah.
Carl says, are there any bands you want to see live before they retire?
Not now. Mine would have been Van Halen, but that's dead in the water, literally. But I would have... Do you know one thing I would like to see, I guess, is... one thing I would like to see is... what's his name? Rob Paulson do... Because he does... He does a load of Animaniac songs live, like he has done in the past. I'd love to see that. I think that would be amazing. But actual bands, there's no one I can think of now. I've seen a lot, but I want to.
I guess sort of like the big name for me. I mean, Metallica, that was sort of like the band that got me into rock and heavy metal, and then I kind of jettisoned off that sound and discovered the 80s and
I'd like to see Sammy Hagar. I would, but it's one of those, because he was part of Van Halen. It's, to me, if I ain't seen Van Halen, I don't care enough. If I never see Sammy Hagar, I never see Sammy Hagar. Like that's like that. But other than that, yeah, I think I've seen majority. Yeah, that's the weird thing.
I crossed a big one off this year with Judas Priest. That was a big one for me. I'm really glad I got that chance to see Judas Priest. For me, it'd probably be Metallica, kind of AC/DC as well. And I did really try and get tickets for their Wembley gig this year, and it was just gone.
Did it sell out that quickly?
I was refreshing the page, and went as soon as it refreshed and popped up, join the queue.
I'm
I did.
really grateful I saw them in 2008. 2008, when it was like pretty much the original lineup. Essentially, it was the main big lineup with Cliff Williams and Malcolm Young and everyone. I was pretty happy I saw that, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to have got there, but I refreshed the page, got in the queue straight away, and it said like your number 34,000. I was like, well, I ain't.
There's a lot of AC/DC fans.
I ain't getting tickets then. So yeah, and then Scorpions to a lesser degree. Like, I'm not a massive Scorpions fan, but I like a lot of their songs. Yeah, definitely not worth 400.
Yeah.
Other than that, like, one of my favourite bands I know, Poison probably, but I don't know if they're ever going to tour in the UK.
I think most of them are done. Most of them are. Motley Crue are done. That's it. They're done. They don't exist anymore.
I say, like, Vixen would be cool to see.
Most of them are. No, they have. They've done. They're done. Most of their. I think who was it that died recently in Vixen? Was it their drummer?
I thought it was the.
I think it might have been the guitarist. One of them, yeah. One of them died.
Well, I know they've got a new singer now, who was the singer from Femme Fatale. She sounds alright. Who else? Dokken, but...
No, you don't want to see Dokken. No, you don't.
I know.
I don't like Dokken.
I know.
Which is really weird, because I don't like Dokken. I've seen him. You like Dokken. You haven't.
Essentially, I'm just... Every time one of my favourite bands announces a tour now, I want to go and see it, because I'm like... We're kind of living on borrowed time, I suppose.
Black Sabbath. Yeah, I saw them. I'm really happy I saw Black Sabbath.
Carl says, I'm lucky seeing the original lineup for Black Sabbath, and I saw AC/DC with Megadeth and Offspring supporting. Oh, wow. Okay.
That would have been cool.
That's a hell of a gig.
Megadeth would have been wicked. That would be cool.
Yeah, did you go and see the final Black Sabbath tour?
Yeah, the last show.
Oh, okay. Oh,
right at the end. That was amazing.
I should have gone to that looking back, but I went
There were balloons at the end and everything. They played Paranoid and a load of balloons came out, and I was like, I don't know if this fits with the song, but sure.
Yeah,
it was so weird. Yeah, it was great.
On your head kind of thing. But I went to the Black Sabbath tour before they did their final tour, so their penultimate one. Yeah. And I think from that gig that I went to see to them announcing their final gig was maybe like a year or two after. And I thought, well, I've seen them fairly recently. How different are they going to be? And by this, because they did that balloon thing when I went to see them as well. Yeah. So I thought, how different is it going to be? So I've seen Black Sabbath. I've seen Black Sabbath, but he says the original lineup. So is that the original drummer as well? Because
how long ago was it though? That's a good point. Cause I don't remember when Bill Ward was last with them.
Yeah. Because
I don't think that would have been. It can't have been unless I don't know. Is Carl like 50?
I don't know. No, I think he's around our age. I'm pretty sure. Because we went to see them. I'm guessing probably for you as well. It was the three, right?
Yeah, it was it Rage Against the Machine drummer or something they had?
Something like that. Yeah, obviously, like Ozzy, Geezer, and Iommi, wasn't it? So then, three of the four. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to. We'll get some more comments in a minute. Keep them coming in, guys. We'll get to them. Let's just move to some more.
This has had more comments than most.
No, this is great. Yeah, no, this engagement's great.
Then again, I never see them. I can never actually see the comments.
Oh, of course you don't on yours. Yeah.
So I'm just like, hey.
So this was kind of a first for a lot. We mentioned it was, the first PG rated one as well, but also in terms of animation.
First CGI.
It was the first one to use computer animation in the Disney animated films as well. It's kind of like a race between this and the following Disney film, Basil the Great Mouse Detective. And technically, if you want to split hairs, Basil the Great Mouse Detective is the first one to do it. This was in production at exactly the same time, and Basil the Great Mouse Detective was using computer-generated imagery in its animation, and the director of this liked it so much and said, or the producer, I can't remember who it was, said, we should be doing this for Black Cauldron as well. And Black Cauldron just got ahead of the game and was released first. So technically they were experimenting with it first in Basil the Great Mouse Detective, but this got the first theatrical release. So Yeah, I mean that's a big thing, you know, further advancements in computer animation, and now that's all we see when it comes to animation now.
It's got a really good panning shot of when the dragons chase them at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like panning through the fields and stuff. It's got a very good. It reminded me of. I don't know why it reminds me of this. I think it's just the first thing I thought from my head. But Dragon Ball Battle of Gods, when they released that, it's very panning. It's very motion picture, because obviously TV shows and movies are gonna have much bigger budgets. You know, when you watch like Dragon Ball as a TV show and then watch a movie of it, like seeing that and seeing them pan through the buildings, I was like, you can tell this is a big screen movie. And it's got quite a bit of that in it. Well, I say quite a bit. It's only like one scene or so, but it's really cool. And I did actually watch it this time and go, have they changed it, or has that always been there?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I did think of that because it looks really cool and it's really new, and it's a very big jump from the last few movies we've seen, especially like Sword and Stone, and yeah.
So apparently David W. Spencer was the guy who came up with some new animation techniques for this film, and it was the APT. Which was the animated photo transfer process. Essentially, it was like cleaning it up. It took like rough animation and printing it onto plastic cell sheets, and it's kind of like the zero graphic thing. But apparently, he won a technical Academy Award for this process. So that's really cool. And then with computer animation coming in, I think it just made the process a lot more easier, a lot more efficient. And kind of eventually got rid of the whole APT thing. It's really technical. It's all on, you know, Wikipedia. There's probably like other features on this as well that go into it in more depth. But essentially, this film kept pushing the envelope with the animation as well. Apparently, it was still difficult for the animation studios to animate real humans.
Do you know what I love though? That cover.
Yes, yeah. So the original theatrical poster.
Very Star Wars looking as well, isn't it? Like
yeah.
all the characters on the. I think it's
the placement with the villain kind of overshadowing everything and underneath. Yeah. So the illustrator, sorry, was Paul Wenzel. But yeah, that's a gorgeous poster. I love that. Probably the original design for the Horned King as well. That looks very different in the face. So I don't know if that was like an early concept for the character, or if that's just the way it's been stylized for the poster. Yeah, and say it was the first one that was PG. First one to bring in the animation.
First one to have end credits.
Yeah, that was a big one. Yeah, because I remember like each week we were kind of looking out for that, weren't we? And I think this is.
Yeah. Which one's the first one without a book? Book intro.
Oh,
because it wasn't this one. So I watched it and I went, "Oh, was it the Rescuers?" I can't remember.
Well, I don't think Aristocats had one, did it? You know, there are some in between that don't have one.
Obviously, not including the anthology ones because they're not. Anthology, that's the wrong one. That's the wrong word. What's the word for those films? The
package films.
That's one. Yeah, package films. Not including those. There was a couple after that with books. But
I think the last one was Winnie the Pooh, wasn't it? That had the book opening.
Might have been. But yeah, it wasn't the first for that, but it was the first. I say no end credits because they always have credits in the beginning. This was the first without that, and there was another one. Oh, Disney logo. Disney logo was different. It was the first one to use the white. Was it the White Castle?
Yeah.
To change
like
that
stencil.
kind of look. Yeah, and that used it up until I can't remember what movie. I did read. I can't remember what was it used it up until because it changed it to like a CGI one at some point. But it was the first to use that for a while, which was cool.
So it's pushing the envelope. I love the widescreen of this film as well. I mean, you compared it to Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I know that wasn't widescreen, but
I think
for me it's Sleeping Beauty. You know, like the Maleficent's castle, and you've got those really gorgeous detailed backgrounds and stuff. The bit where Taran, right after the Gwythaints, the dragon-like creature, the Wyvern-like characters, snatch Henwen, and he like climbs. He goes through the thorns, which also reminded me of Sleeping Beauty, actually, like the big thorn bush. And he climbs to the top of that like little hill, and then it overlooks just this like desolate land with a castle and the dragons just flying off in the distance. That shot is just so I love the background. I think it makes really effective use of the widescreen in this. Do you have like a favourite particular scene in this film?
In terms of animation or
just in general, like one scene that you love, like you get excited by, or that stays with you when you watch the film?
One thing that does stay with me now, since rewatching it, is the dragons. I know they've got another name, but you know what I'm like with names in this movie. Chasing them right at the beginning in the fields. I think because the way it looks and the animation, and I think the reason it stands out is because it's kind of showing what kind of movie it is as well. Like, you know, the kind of creatures that are in it. And I remember first watching it thinking, oh, there are dragons in this. Oh, this goes really, you know, above and beyond. So that one in particular, I'd say that one. And you know where the undead are like walking after they've been risen.
Oh yeah, the
I
Cauldron
literally
board.
had to double take and check I hadn't dropped acid. Like, it looked like that's how they were. Like, they looked, because they were kind of not blurry, but quite. I don't know what the word is, but they did.
It's like
look
they mess
weird.
with the shutter speed and like the
Yeah.
various overlay. Yeah, no, it
But
looks
that was
really
supposed
cool.
to be different, wasn't it? Because that was supposed to be all their bloody and all this kind of thing, but they changed it to green. Isn't that kind of like? Didn't they change like Maleficent's blood to green smoke or something? I swear there was something. Was that just Kingdom Hearts? There was something like that.
I'm not sure, but it's an eerie color, isn't it? I
Yeah.
mean, Peter Jackson used it as well for the Army of the Dead in the Lord of the Rings. That green color, and it is that deathly, sickly, creepy, haunted color, isn't it? Green,
Yeah.
like whenever you see it. Which is why we've had it as the background for this. And I don't know whether this is something that Streamlabs does, whether it's coincidence. The comments coming up on the screen is also in green writing, so I don't know if
they're
the
on the screen,
text.
the comments. I didn't know.
Yeah, I don't know if the text kind of goes, oh, that your background color is this, so we're going to match the text to this, or if that is just a happy coincidence that the text is also green. But that's pretty cool. I'm trying to find this dragon sound effect, and it's the dragons in this film make this roar that is just used in so many like kids cartoons. Like it's
Do you know what
this
it reminds me
stock
of?
sound.
Do you know that? Do you ever watch the Dungeons and Dragons TV show with the roller coaster?
No, I don't think so.
I think it's called Dungeons and Dragons. There's a roller coaster, and they go into like Dungeons and Dragons world on a roller coaster. That is a thing. I'm not making this up. I swear. It sounds so weird now that I say it, but I swear that's a thing. Yeah, it reminds me of that. Don't know why.
I'm trying to find this dragon roar. It's I don't want to do an impression of it because it'll be awful. It'll be terrible. Dragon roar sound effect cartoon. Yeah, I'm not gonna find it, but anyway, like the fucking sound of the dragons in this I feel like was used in like 1,000,001 other films, like the Land Before Time films, like the sound of sharp tooth roaring, like it's that kind of similar sound. Let's see. Carl says Sabbath was 2001 at the Milton Keynes Bowl with Slipknot and Tool supporting.
That was definitely a while ago.
Yeah,
That was a good 23 years ago. 2001.
Ooh.
I was 7. Was I 7?
I don't know. You do the math. You're a bit younger
7.
than me.
7.
You're still
I
a
was
young
7.
whippersnapper compared to me.
I was 7.
I'm an old.
What's number 29? Which one's my age?
Number 29 is The Rescuers Down Under.
Hey, what was yours?
You get.
What, is
Hey,
it like
I get Aladdin.
Tangled?
I get Aladdin. Oh, you cheeky bastard! I get Aladdin. So that's a cool one too. Any favorite scene for me? It's got to be the Horned King. It's got to be that introduction scene, like that monologue that he gets, the initial one. I've watched that scene countless times. I love the pacing of it. I love that low whispery voice that he has, and the slow build up to his reveal. You know, when he's like, "You will worship me," and you get like his silhouette on the wall, and then he just backs off like, "Me." Like, oh, the way that John Hurt's fucking brilliant in this whole
No,
film.
I think it would be cool. Like, the Horn King's great, but I just think it'd be really cool if the whole time he was bleeding, just dripping blood. How cool would that be?
There's a bit where the cauldron like drips blood, isn't it? You know, when it like it's when the Horn King puts the body in there, and he brings up the cauldron born. The sort of like feet of the cauldron turn into claws and start like dragging into the floor, and I swear you have like all blood coming out of it and stuff.
Do you know, I always found this about the Black Cauldron. I find it a weird object to be like the one, like it's a cauldron. It's strange. In a way.
That could be from mythology, though. I'm guessing that's probably from mythology.
But
somehow.
I always found it weird. I always found it a bit like, so why is it a cauldron? Because when you think like Lord of the Rings, it's a ring, like it's carryable. It's this. Cauldron is a big thing. I always found it a bit strange. But maybe, like I said, I did watch it later in life, and I already knew what Lord of the Rings was. I'm not as big a Lord of the Rings fan as you. I've only watched the movies probably like once. Like that's my extent of Lord of the Rings knowledge. But my point is, like, I knew the One Ring. You knew this. You have all these different objects. Where you have like a wayfinder. It's about this big or whatever. But Black Cauldron, it's like such a big thing. I always found it a bit strange. I don't know why, but yeah, it could be mythology.
I quite like the little bit of the preamble that we get at the beginning, the prologue, and again, that was another deleted or early concept.
That's one thing I love. It starts silent. There's just clouds. There's no music, because usually it's so nice, happy. It's just clouds. You're like, oh, okay. You know the tone is different. I think
there's a bit of the creepy music coming in, and then we get that voice. The prologue was going to be slightly more extended. This is that playlist again on YouTube where you can find all of the alternate and deleted scenes and early concepts. There was going to be an extended prologue, and it was going to go into the lay of the land a bit more and what was happening, because there's a line in the film from King Idlé of the fairies where he says like, has the I don't know if he says the killing stopped up there, but he talks about like the burning stopped. He's talking about like the the land of men, and it never really gets developed beyond that. That there's wars going on up there. There's cities and villages being razed to the ground. You never really get all of that. And when he says like, as the burning stopped, you're like, well, what does he mean by that? The prologue was going to go into much more detail on that, and was going to show that, and was going to show the devastation that was being waged by the Horned King. And I think the fairies were aware of this. I think you see them in the prologue as well. So it was going to be a lot more involved, and I'm sure the book goes into this as well.
You know the witches? Like
yeah.
Do you know who they remind me of? The Canker sisters in Ed, Ed and Eddie.
Yeah,
I don't know
love it.
why. I think it's just because they're kind of like, one of them, the fat one's like flirtatious, and it's a kind of like, but then again, it's like the whole gargoyles, the three gargoyles. There's always three. It's always this. But that's the first thing that came to my head was the Canker sisters. I don't know why, but that's the reaction I had in my head straight away. But yeah.
And to me, they reminded me of the Fates from Hercules. And with these like three witches, I mean, these are the only two examples I'm going with from these films. Men. There's always one who's like the older one, who's like the sensible one in conversation. You get that with the three witches in this, and then you get that with one of the Fates. You get one that's madly in love with someone, or a bit sort of coy with things, I guess. You have the one that's like completely got the hots for Fluda. Like, my god, the floodgates have been opened. Like in this film, it's crazy how horny she is. Like, could you imagine that though, if they gender flipped this? Like that wouldn't slide at all, would it?
I know.
But then in Hercules, you have the one who Hades kind of flirts with a little bit, and she gets all like a bit giggly, and then you just have the batshit insane cackling one that's like, you know.
Yeah, they've always
got
like
the three hyenas in Lion King. You've got the retarded one that's just
laugh, which I didn't know about until recently.
Yeah,
it's an actual thing. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Let's see. SeaWorld Man says, going to be in other room you did some reactions to. Oh, I did used to do reactions in there. Yeah, that takes me back. That's because I was with my ex at the time, and she used to commandeer this room, so I used to have to up and move my Mac in there. Yeah, that was a long time ago. That was many years ago now. I won't be moving any Mac now, that's for damn sure. In there, in that other room, yeah. Probably not the... I remember the acoustics in there being a little bit weird. It's quite an echoey room.
Why did you just put her in that room?
I did quite often, and then I think
you had to pick up a Mac.
And then she started to rebel and was like, I'm not moving it. It's like, well, I've got live streams to be doing, so I used to move in there. I used to do my guitar practice in there as well. I know. Yeah, I know. that wouldn't be happening now. As I say, I've learned a lot. There's been character development since then. I mean, we could probably...
That's one thing, actually, character development. Not a lot of them have a lot of character
No,
development.
not at all. That's probably my biggest
Taran
drawback.
He has some, but he doesn't really, because like he just kind of grave robs the sword, doesn't he? He just kind of takes it. Essentially, the conversations, where'd you get that? Oh, I found it. Essentially, that's what it is. And it's very... He doesn't develop loads, but he doesn't sense like he kind of becomes that hero at the end, but there's not a big character development in any of the characters, really. They're just kind of... They do their thing, and it's cool. And this is why I do think... This is one of the reasons I want to read the book. One, because it's great, but also because I think there'll be more character development. You'll see a lot, and you'll go, oh, okay. And I want that, because like the princess, for argument's sake, she's just there.
Yeah.
And I think you'll see more of her in the books, and I think that'd be great. And plus, she has red hair, which is always important. But you know, I think there'll be a lot more to these characters that you'll see, and I do think this is a good. If you enjoy this, I mean, I don't know how good the books are. I haven't read them yet, but I think it's a good trailer for the books.
Yeah.
You watch it and go, oh, okay, cool. Right, read the books, you'll find out more. I think it might be one of them.
I mean, we've both had that approach to it. Like, we've both watched this recently, and we've both wanted to go, I want to read the books to this. And a lot of these Disney films that we've done have been based on various books and tales and things. And every time we sit on this review, I'm like, haven't read the books for this. But this is one, because I know I love fantasy.
Yeah. And it's a good series.
And it's a good series, and it's dipping into like mythology and stuff like that. I think I'd really like them.
Whereas a lot of them, they come from Brothers Grimm. The tales of like, and they are darker, but I've read the darker bits in the sense of like, what is it? Was it the Queen? Where she has to like dance in like these cold shoes and they burn her to death or something. It's something like that
for all
like
eternity.
Yeah, it's like a really weird, but it's really cool. But there's like these little bits. Whereas I think because this is actually a series and it's based on that rather than just it's one story. It's based on a kind of a lot, and they've kind of put it on the first two and they put it together. Which
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those where, I mean, we could both read the books and we could both fucking hate them. Actually, we could turn that into a little bit of a book club. If I end up buying the books as well and we get through, we could you know, reconvene for another review on the Black Cauldron, but on the books.
Sell them to me. Then.
Yes, yeah. Because I think it will be one of those things where it's like the film is its own thing, kind of like what the author said, like the film's its own thing and you can appreciate the film for what it is, but the books are a totally different, kettle of fish.
So many people, there's so many authors that don't like the film adaptations of their book because they leave things out. They go, that was important,
which is probably understandable.
Yeah,
I can probably see that.
It's one of those things, you know, when you're really close to something, it's like anyone, like if, I don't know, for instance, like when we watched the Motley Crue movie, because we loved the band, we read the book and everything, it was very like, they're missing this and missing this and all that sort of stuff. Whereas when you're not as close to it, it's great. But the closer you are, the worse it is, because they'll remove things. And I think that's one thing that Harry Potter did, right? J.K. Rowling was very involved with the movie. She made a point of, I need to sit in on these because I need to make sure you're including what I want to be included, which was really good. And you could really tell when she started going, oh, it's fine, you do your thing. You could tell. You were like, yeah, that's not as good. Yeah, that's not as good.
Although, saying that, she did write the screenplay for both, I think, for the Fantastic Beasts movies. And they were bloody awful.
Yeah, exactly.
So...
But she doesn't write screenplays. I think the thing is, it's about being close to... Because the thing is, when... It's like, what was it? Roald Dahl hated the first Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie. Yeah. Which was Willy Wonka and Chocolate Factory. But I understand that. That was a musical and, like, it was a very different approach. But it's again, one of those things where if you read the book first, you don't enjoy the movie as much.
What was that earlier Disney film where they reached out to the author to give her blessing on a character or something, or on making the film, and like he like Walt Disney, it was when he was alive, when Walt Disney, he like begged, like, please, like, can you give me your blessing for this? And she just wasn't interested. We mentioned that. I actually can't remember which one that was. It was Peter Pan, I think, wasn't it? I think it was Peter Pan. I think it was one of the actresses who like played in it. I can't remember. We talked about that before, but yeah, I think ultimately in her statement it was that I'm so attached to these characters or something. Well, no, that was a male author, wasn't it? I can't remember which Disney film it was, but the approach was that I'm so close to these characters, and seeing a different interpretation of it just feels wrong. Yeah. It feels like watching a ghost of something that I know is real. Yeah. So I, as a creator, I can completely understand someone having that approach to it. Anything else I can add to this film? I really like the Viking boat at the end when they have to try and get that metal gate open. There's a bit where they get into like a Viking longboat. Weird tangent. I used to go to Blackpool Pleasure Beach almost every single year. That was like our big family holiday. We'd always go to Blackpool. And there was, and still is, a ride that has been recently refurbished there called Valhalla, which is a Viking ride. It's an indoor log flume ride. And you ride in a plastic iteration of a Viking longboat with like the dragon head at the front of the boat. And every time I see this scene where they make their escape out that like sewer river system on that boat, it really reminds me of that. And obviously I would have been a kid at the time when I was watching that, so I probably would have had that.
How cool do you reckon it'd be to live underwater?
I mean, as a human, probably not great. We don't have gills. We wouldn't live for very long.
If we could breathe underwater, and like, how cool would you think?
I think it would be terrifying. That's like one of my like biggest fears, and probably going to Kingdom Hearts.
No, but if we could breathe, it probably would.
No, but even then, like
all the monstery fish underneath.
We're not used to that. That is an alien world.
It is. They're under there.
It's terrifying. And at like 3 or 4 in the morning when you should be asleep, that's when you watch the scariest, like creepiest documentaries you can on YouTube. And then I find myself watching videos on how deep is the ocean and deep sea creatures and underwater footage that's been seen, and it messes with my mind, man. Like falling in that water and just sinking to
all the
bottom.
Kind of fish underneath. Prawns actually eat us.
Yeah,
because we eat prawns, but then prawns are the one thing that if we died and our body just floated, that's wrong, sunk, it's completely opposite floated. But anyway, it just sunk all the way to the bottom and it was dead or whatever, prawns would then go into us and eat us from the inside out.
We're all connected in the great circle of life.
It all turns around.
When we die, our bodies become the grass, and the antelope eat the grass.
That's topical. The new Mufasa trailer came out today for the computer-generated Lion King prequel movie.
Is Thingy still in it? The black guy?
Probably not, because he's like they've probably got like a AI voice. No, they've probably recast him actually because it's like a younger version of him.
Why have I forgotten his name? Hang on, don't do this to me. Hang on, I'll remember it.
They called it Mufasa the Lion King. Of course they've called it that because you got to
James L. Jones. Why'd I forget that?
You got to put the Lion King in there, just so it sells tickets.
Yeah, it hasn't got James L. Jones in it. I thought it did.
December movie. The prequel about the rise of one of the greatest kings of the Pride Lands goes back to the African savannah where Rafiki tells Kiara, daughter of Simba and Nala, the story of her grandfather, while Timon and Pumbaa add colour commentary.
Of course.
So what they're doing is they're setting up Kiara, the daughter of. So then you're going to get Lion King 2 come out. They're going to do a live action version.
Who's
of that.
Aaron Pierre?
Aaron Pierre.
Don't know. He's 29 though.
I haven't seen any of those. Nope.
They're doing a Lightyear thing where they recast the voice, and no one knows why. That was recommended to me.
Still got Seth Rogen. I think that's the same voice as Timon. I stayed away from the other one. Oh, Mads Mikkelsen. How much are you betting that he's going to be the fucking villain in this film? Oh no, they've got Sarabi. Okay, so that it looks like they're kind of combining, or at least setting up characters for Lion King 2. Yeah, you got Sarabi. I guess you're probably going to have Kovu. Is Kovu in here? Have they got Kovu? They've got Kiara. No. They might be changing up a little bit.
Zazu.
Oh, well, is Scar going to be in there as well? Because, I mean, Scar was his brother. So, I don't know what they're going to do. I'm not going to watch it anyway. I'm not going to give it the time of day.
Yeah.
Right, I think that will probably do it for the Black Cauldron. We could talk about it more, but inherently, my final review on it, I really enjoy it as like a fun little swords and sorcery movie. All the characters are functional. Taran fits the kind of, the hero's journey, the farm boy becoming warrior. You've got the princess character in there. You've got the comic relief, and you've got like a really cool evil villain that is just evil sorcerer and wants to conquer the world. It's very safe. I think it could have been a lot more. I think they could have added a lot more of the depth into it and the character development and just getting to know these characters and their interplay a bit more. So the characters are very surface level and aren't particularly memorable, or, like Taran isn't like one of my favourite protagonists ever. Along way, there's probably, there's not really much to her. But I still love this film for its animation style, for the tone of it, and the fact that it was something a little bit different from Disney. They took a chance on this. It didn't pay off in the end because it lost them, like 23, 25 million, which is a big gamble to do, and it almost tanked the entire animation company. But I still adore this film for what it is. I'm very interested to read the books, and yeah, I think it's fine. I think it's a bit of a cult classic now, this one. I think it's a bit of an underrated gem because I think there is, despite its shortcomings in terms of the plot and the characters, I do think there is still a lot to love with this film, personally.
Yeah, I think it's great. I would watch it again and again. I have watched it again and again recently.
Probably give it a couple of months before you start watching it.
I think it's great. It's one of those. It's different, and it's a good different though. It's not one of those where you go, why'd you do that? It's a very good different, and I think there should be a few more Disney movies that are a little bit different. Whereas they're very. I say they're all very the same, but then you got to think the 90s were all very the same as well. So it's one of those where maybe they shouldn't do it often, but it doesn't hurt to take a couple of risks. Yeah. But then again, it did bomb, so they probably look at it in a different perspective. But, I think it's very fun, and I think it's great because it is basically, Dungeons & Dragons. It's a movie, and it makes you want to read the book. Yeah. Whereas I think that's because, like you say, there could be more to it. There could be. It could have easily been a 2-hour movie, and the pacing could have been great. It just probably would have bombed even more. Yeah. People would probably not got to the end, which I completely understand because there's a family-friendly thing. Fair enough. But, it intrigues me more. It makes me want to go read the book, so I think it's great. Is that going to be our next retrospective? It's going to be another Disney retrospective, but reading all of the source material books that we can. Everyone's reading Snow White, that would be cool, actually. That would wind me up, though, because Snow White's based on a book. Yeah. Pinocchio is. Fantasia isn't. So already it's going to throw the numbers off, and that's going to annoy me. Fantasia's the original Disney movie, though, isn't it? Fantasia's. I guess so. The one. It's like Yen Sid is. Who did I compare Yen Sid to? Eddie Van Halen. Yeah. Yeah. Of course you did. Yeah. Of course you did. Yeah. So that'll do it for this week's. But next week we were back, of course. Yeah, we should be live. It's also the day that I'm going to be seeing the 25th anniversary of The Phantom Menace, and I really want to do a review on that as well. To see how it holds up, and a lot of my memories, and a lot of probably stuff that I haven't actually talked about. If I can fish out like some of my old merchandise as well, maybe I can do that too. But that clashes on the Monday, so we'll still be doing the Disney review next week at 8 PM. I should be back on time for that. But then one day that week, I want to do a review on Phantom Menace as well. So probably the day after, I'll do a Phantom Menace review, or when I can that week. But next week, I can't wait to get to this one. This is one of my personal favourites. Basil the Great Mouse Detective.
number 26. Did you say you've seen this one, or you've never seen this one before?
No, never seen it.
It's gonna be. I'm so jealous. I'm so jealous. The villain in this, Vincent Price, is amazing.
But then again,
yeah.
I say I've never seen it. It might be one of those where I think I've never seen it. And I
And
might have
it'll
done.
come back to you a little
But
bit.
from what I know in my head at the moment, I've not actually seen it.
I love this film. I can't wait to watch it again. Vincent Price is like Basil. Oh yeah, can't wait to get to
Speaking
that one.
of Phantom Menace, though, you know they're going to CGI Yoda.
They have done.
That's what I'm saying, but you know that's going to be a thing.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
They did it since the
It'll
3D,
be
haven't
the Disney Plus version. Yeah.
they? Yeah, because they did it since it brought out in 3D.
Oh wait, no, that's sorry. I was thinking of another change that they did on Disney Plus, but that's episode 4. It was the
What did they
Greedo
do?
scene.
With the shooting and he moves his head.
So you know how that's like one of the most
Talked about thing. Ever.
well, not just that, but that scene was constantly changed. Like every single version, it was tweaked
Oh,
in
it's not
some
weird
way.
where he moves his head and you're like, it just looks weird.
Yeah, and then in the next release, like they trimmed a couple of frames off that to try and speed it up, and then they changed the color of it, and then they switch things around almost every version. Disney Plus added an extra bit in there.
What did they put?
So you know how it used to be like when he says, I've been waiting for this for a long time, and he says, yes, I bet you have, and in the original he shoots him straight away.
Yeah.
Then it became like, yes, I bet you have.
Then he moves,
Weird
and
head movement. They've now added an extra line from Greedo right before he shoots him. So he goes like, yes, I bet you have. Cuts back to Greedo and he goes, McClunky. And then he shoots him.
Oh, yeah, I remember you... Yeah, I remember you saying
So
that,
it's but I love it. Just keep changing that scene. Just
I
keep
don't think
changing
I watched
it.
it on Disney Plus. I don't think I watched 4 on Disney Plus yet. I
But-
watched 1 on Disney Plus.
I think that was the only check. I think they cleaned up some scenes as well, like maybe a color correction
You
on
seen
the
the
film.
original Jabba the Hutt?
Yeah.
Where he's a man?
Yeah. Because George Lucas hadn't worked out that it was going to be like a giant slug monster. Like those swords, Dale.
Swords. I'm trying to work out what swords...
Do you know what that means?
No, I don't. Hang on. I'm trying to think if I have any sword tattoos.
Like those swords. Oh, is he talking about the Keyblades?
I don't have Keyblade tattoos. I have a dagger tattoo here, but it can't be that.
Oh.
I have no idea.
See what, man, before we sign off, what are you talking about? Because I'm going to be like keeping myself awake at night trying to figure out what you mean.
Same. I thought that's why I'm just literally looking around my body going, where's the sword?
Like those
Oh,
swords.
no, there's a knife there, but you can't tell that's a knife from
Have you
the...
lifted your arm up during the review when you did that?
No,
Did you
well-
scratch the back of your neck or?
No, you can't tell it's a sword. Well, it's a blade, but you can't really tell from the thing.
Yeah,
can
from
you?
this camera, yeah.
So I don't think it is that.
No,
No, I'm
tell us, SeaWorld Man, what do you mean? Oh, on wall. Like those swords.
Yeah, but it's got nothing
Dale.
to do with me.
I know it's got nothing to do with you.
On the wall. These are yours. And also, how can you see them?
Yeah, I'm very confused.
There's
Anyway,
one there. There's one there.
yeah, that's Thorin's original sword,
So maybe that-
Deathless.
maybe that.
Very difficult to get
They're
now.
not mine.
No. Right, I think that'll do it for Black Cauldron. I think it's probably one of our longest reviews, actually.
How
Almost at, coming up to 1 hour 20 almost. So we'll round off.
It's almost as long as the movie.
Yeah, yeah, we broke even probably. We're getting up there. Basil the Great Mouse Detective next week. It's going to be really fun. I'm going to try and do a few more live streams if I can.
It's 77 minutes is exactly the length.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, stop.
There's going to be Star Wars reviews, Phantom Menace, and Disney. But yeah, we'll be back next Monday. Probably not in the same room next week, but we will be back. But yeah, thanks for everyone who tuned in, commented along. You guys are great, and we'll catch you next time.